Okay. So, in today's newspapers, we have a few important issues that will recur again and again in your further classes also. So, whatever you are listening to in today's class, take that as a precursor for next few weeks. Okay. So, it's like the beginning of new set of themes, and they will repeat again and again. So, today we will be discussing how to approach similar issues. Like, we will be giving some frameworks of thoughts. Let's begin, but before that, homework. Now, trade deficit. The homework here is, what should you do? Go to your GS3 economy, and within that static textbook of economy, you will have balance of payments as a part of external sector. Balance of payments. In that, what is current account? What is current account deficit? See that. Invisible and visible. How is it related to this news? See this. Okay. Once these basics are clear, you will make sense of this news. That's how you are supposed to look at this news. Read the basics, then come back to this news. Now, here, FATF is going to come up with a state-sponsored terror report for the first time. A very, very important development. How can you link this? In GS3, you have money laundering. In that money laundering theme, you have financial action task force. There are some lists like grey list, etc. Know these basics. What is FATF? What is it supposed to do? And what is its link to this news? Okay, note down. This is the homework. Done? Okay. This one. What do I want you to learn from this news? I am not expecting that you remember the name by heart it. This is a article where I want you to observe some things. Whenever you get any news on species, what do I want to know? I want you to observe the geography. I want you to observe the behavior of flora and fauna in that region, and understand the ecological logic. Now, what do I mean by this ecological logic? The behavior of any species is tuned towards survival. Okay? In a particular geography, a plant or an animal species will adapt according to the conditions. So, the behavior is linked to conditions there. So, whenever you are looking at any endemic species, whenever you see this word endemic species, please note down this word, especially the freshers. Endemic species. What does it mean? That species is only confined to that region, meaning it cannot survive in any other region. So, if something happens to that place, if that habitat is destructed, it will impact the species very disproportionately. Okay, that is what you have to know. That's all in this news. Yeah. Here, again, this news is in the context of Iran-Israel conflict. So, what is the article writer saying? Israel's intention, according to the writer, is to annex territories. Whenever you are looking at any conflict, escalation, what is it that you have to notice? What is the intention of the parties? Look at the intention. So there is a doctrine of proportionality. Please note down this word, doctrine of proportionality. According to this doctrine, any action that you take or any attack that you carry out, that should be proportionate to the conflict. See, for example, if Iran is provoking and attacking their military bases, Israel should also retaliate and attack only military bases, not civilians. This is what the author says. So, if you take a look at how Israel has been communicating in the past few weeks, it indicates a complete paradigm shift from attacking the proxies, meaning we have already discussed this, a paradigm shift from attacking the proxies to directly attacking the regime responsible behind that. So instead of saying that we are trying to curb the terrorists, Israel now wants to address the issue directly by escalating the conflict, according to the writer. A paradigm shift from addressing the proxies to addressing the state behind that proxies. This is the doctrine of proportionality that is being violated, according to the writer. The second argument is that respect to international law. This argument framework is relevant for any conflict. Okay, how do you de-escalate a conflict? By respecting the international law. What is the international law in this situation? You have Geneva Convention on war crimes. See, whether it is the Israel-Iran issue or the Russia-Ukraine issue, these principles are violated. For example, the other day when we were talking about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, we discussed about how a swarm of drones entered into Russia and started attacking Russian soldiers. There are some drones called the kamikaze drones, where they are like suicide bombers. So these kamikaze kind of a drone entered into Russian territory. They chased down individual soldiers and they shot them at point blank. See, when an unarmed soldier is surrendering, according to the international law, you are not supposed to kill that soldier. The purpose of war is not to address or kill the messenger, but to address the conflict. That is a message. This is the respect for the international law, which is being flouted by use of autonomous weapons, drones, and we are disrespecting the principles that brought peace in the world. And this is the pattern that is happening across the world, and the changing nature of warfare is a cause of concern. It's an ethical concern. In this case, these two principles are being discussed, and the writer believes that this is a deliberate attack, deliberate, what do I say, action taken up by Israel against Iran to, I mean, some international commentators, they went on to mention that Israel is probably thinking of ethnic cleansing. When you take a look at the other side of the argument, Israel starts to communicate that we have never attacked any individual as long as, or individual country, as long as they started attacking and they started to provoke. And if you take a look at the argument, there is some credibility to that also, because it started with the escalation of conflict in Gaza last year. So is it justified by is it justified to start or initiate an attack? No. But is Israel's action now justified? Maybe not, because civilians are not a part of this. So maybe there could be a situation where dialogue is the only way out. The DNA approach: dialogue, negotiation, and action. For any conflict, this is the only way you will survive. And this is the framework of thought that I want you to have. Clear? Write down. I'll move to the next article. Okay. This is about India, Bangladesh. So this news article, you can take a look at it from the lens of India and its neighborhood in GS2. Bilateral relations, India neighborhood. The predominant policy of India to approach this issue is the Act East policy, neighborhood first doctrine. There was this doctrine called the Gujarat doctrine. So, according to this doctrine, if you respect the needs of our neighbors, you will be building some trust and credibility, which will make diplomacy easier. Now, what do you mean by this? Whether it is trade relations, security, disaster relief, in any situation when help is needed for our neighbors, we should be the first one to come and arrive for that help. But what if there is some internal disturbance which will disturb this equation? How should we conduct ourselves? How should they behave? And what is the extent to which we should go? This is the consideration. This is the framework of consideration we should think. See, yes, we agree that we have to act in such a way that we are building trust. But what if there is some internal friction? For example, Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, the previous prime minister, was literally ousted and she was almost assassinated. She had to flee. So in such a situation where the new regime is anti-India and is tilting towards China, is it right to stop trade transit? Meaning, Bangladesh is surrounded by India on three sides. Transit means if some goods is arriving into Bangladesh and Bangladesh wants to send it to, say, let's say Nepal, or trade with India, if the Indian government denies a transit, what will happen? It will lead to an economic blockage. Alright. There is one more initiative called the BeamStec. So this is a cooperation with the regions in South Asia, with an intent to cooperate on many economic and social issues, and each sectoral initiative means, let's say for example, maritime cooperation, fishing, harbors, trade, strengthening the navy, military relations, all this will come under the maritime cooperation domain. That theme, sectoral theme. So in this BeamStack, the way the participants coordinate is, they will take up one theme, and in that one theme there will be a partner, and they will develop a agenda on how to build relations for that entire block. So India has taken up the sector of maritime cooperation. In such a scenario, because of an internal friction with Bangladesh, if India denies a transit, the writer says that it will affect the trust and credibility that India has built. Okay, this is the central funda of this editorial. Now, should we agree with this or not? See, our objective is to make you think. And when I say think, I should at least give you the questions that you need to think on. Right? So what are the questions that I am posing? If China is involving, if Bangladesh threatens, see, there is a present wave of anti-India in Bangladesh. But historically, in diplomacy is about negotiations. So no matter which regime comes, it's about negotiating. So Ministry of External Affairs should continue to extend this trade relations, let's say. But what is the bargaining power we have? And they will continue to be anti-India despite our cooperation, tilt towards China and take advantage of their economic might. And we still continue to be friendly without asking any questions. What does India have? See, this criticism is valid. It will disturb trust. What will trust yield us when the intent of the other party is not clear? It takes two hands to form a bond, to shake the hands, not a one-way approach, right? So if the other party is not willing to do the same gesture, how do we conduct international affairs? Because ultimate funda of international relations is strategic autonomy. We want strategic autonomy, meaning nobody should dictate our terms. It doesn't mean we are showing a big brother attitude where the neighboring countries are expected to behave as we ask them to do. It's like a mutual respect. Correct. Let's look at Bangladesh's possibility. Like, can Bangladesh afford to completely move away from India and depend on China? In this context, we have to consider three factors. The first factor being geography. Almost 4,000 kilometers boundary we have with Bangladesh from three sides. The other side is sea. And that area, India is like the stronger nation because it is our strategic backyard. It's unlikely that China will dominate that area. Literally speaking, it is surrounded by India from all sides, Bangladesh. So they might move towards China, let's say. But can China defy geography? It wants to through an initiative called One Belt, One Road Initiative, or Belt and Road Initiative. What is it doing as a part of this? China is building infrastructure across countries. They want to build roadways, highways, waterways, whatever. Whatever it takes to build connections across countries, they are willing to do it. But it will cost. How are, the governments across the world looking at this? They are looking at this as a opportunity to build their own infrastructure without realizing they're getting into a trap. That trap is called debt trap. Okay. And because of this debt trap, they are unable to take their own decisions, which is ultimately affecting their sovereignty. So Bangladesh, even if it wants to move towards China, they are very scared, because take a look at every country which associated with China. Pakistan, Sri Lanka, everywhere this has been the issue. So they are not really keen on moving towards China because they will lose their entire freedom. That anti-India rhetoric is just for regional elections. But irrespective of the governments, they know they can't afford to stop Indian support. They can't defy geography. Like I told you, there is this book called Revenge of Geography in one of the classes I told you. It's a beautiful book. If you have time, read that book, Revenge of Geography by Robert Kaplan. You will get many such stories about how international relations, geopolitics are interlinked. Anyway, coming back. So this is the framework of thought I want you to have when it comes to India diplomacy efforts. So there will be continuous criticism that India is losing credibility, this, that. But if India doesn't have any leverage, and if it continues to support despite a looming threat without any cooperation, should we continue to do that? If not, what is a better way to handle this anti-India rhetoric? That should be the line of thought. So as of now, this should be the line of thought you should have. What should we do to contain this threat? Should we continue to act like Good Samaritan, where even when we know their intent is not right, we continue to support them, get backstabbed? When I say backstabbed, I'm just giving some emotional overtone, literally meaning we are not getting anything in return. Right? So this is the line of thought that I want you to have. Every time you look at an article, this is what I want you to question and look at. Clear? This is how you judge an editorial. Next up. Okay, this we will see some other time because this is not really important. This article, Analyzing Internet Access and Digital Skills in India. See, this is important for GS1 Indian society. In that, you have salient features of Indian society. One of the salient feature is caste. How is caste changing in the times of internet? This can be a potential question. Maybe this article can be used as a question source either this year or next year. So this article should be read with an open mind. There is nothing much to explain. Lot of data will be there. Skip the data. Don't try to remember the data. Observe the patterns. What is happening? Observe the change. Okay? That is the purpose of this article. We will use this article sometime in the future to code data. But right now, observe the patterns and leave it at that. Because you have to first fix your core polity, economy, environment, science and tech, and then come back to issues like this. Okay? Moving on. Now, this Shipkila Pass. See, in GS1 geography, especially for prelims, mountain passes is a very important theme. You should go to your PYQs chapter wise Indian geography and see the number of questions that were asked in this chapter. So we are talking about Shipkila Pass, which is there in Himachal, Kinnaur district of Himachal Pradesh. Okay. Similarly, you can take a look at two other passes called Nathula and Lipulek. Shipkila in Himachal, Nathula in Sikkim, and Lipulek in Uttarakhand. These three are important because they are connecting India to China. This present news is about Shipkila being opened up for trade with Tibetan region, which is taken up by China, annexed by China. Here in this context, you can go to my Telegram channel and search for Mao's 5-finger policy. See, what happened is Mao Zedong, Chinese leader, he had an ambition. He thought China as the arm, and there are 5 fingers which are extending, which belong to China. So according to that doctrine, Arunachal Pradesh, Tibet, and some other regions in the Far East, they belong to China according to this doctrine. And they have occupied Tibet as a part of this doctrine. India did not allow that. Even though a part of it was annexed, we have had a check post since 1962 war that stopped this aggression of China. In 2020, Galwan attacks happened, border conflict in Galwan. They are inspired by this very same doctrine. So you have to read this to appreciate the context of this. And what is the significance of Shipkila? It's the trade conduit between the regions. So one more important fact you have to remember is there is one river that passes through this. What is the river? Sutlej. If you don't know, just go and look. This news is important for your prelims exam next year. Very, very important. So go through these passes, see the significance of these passes, and that is what I am expecting you to take a look at. Okay? Fine. Now this article. When can the US president deploy military on US soil? How do we use this article? In GS2, you have a topic called comparison of constitutions. Okay? In that topic, you can link this article. How do we link? See, in India, we have something called emergency provisions. And we also have constitutional provisions which allow regional laws. For example, UPSC. Armed Forces Special Protection Act. So, compare the provisions that are mentioned in this article to this emergency and UPSC kind of articles. The purpose of this article and that article is to ensure internal stability. The, what do I say? The explanation that is provided here is good enough for you to understand and compare the both frameworks. So I'm just giving you a heads up as to where you will find. See, comparison of constitution is one area that is purely dynamic. You don't know from where questions are coming. So at least when you get news items like this, store them in your notes. They might come at any point. Okay, so many random articles come on this issue, so that's why it is important to compile them. Clear? That is a takeaway from this. Now, India's nuclear liability law. How should you read this? GS3 infrastructure, and under that you have power. If you go to power ministry and see how much power we are getting from nuclear sources, it is roughly 2%. What is the principle behind nuclear power plant? Nuclear fission. This is for your prelims exam. What are the 3 stages of India's nuclear power program? Third stage reactor, second stage reactor, etc. Also prepare that nuclear power program. Okay? Now, what should you observe in this article? How to read this? India makes agreements for supply of nuclear material with many countries like France, US, etc. But you made, first of all, when you are carrying out a trade in radioactive materials, since it can be a cause of threat, you need to take the permission of the governments there. Companies should take the permission of the governments. And most importantly, across the world, a very strong control is there on suppliers by their respective governments. Okay. So, in this context, you have to understand the civil nuclear liability concept. Meaning, in 1984, we've had the Bhopal gas tragedy. What happened as a part of that? Some industrial disaster took place, and because of that industrial disaster, many people got killed and it affected many more. Who is responsible for compensating? This became a point of debate. As a part of that, we have had this CLNDA in 2010, Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act. Okay. In this, you have generally across the world, operator to supplier. Operator and supplier. When a damage happens, okay, note it down. When a damage happens, is it the operator who is liable or is it the supplier? This is the question. Across the world, the way we approach it is operator is supposed to take care. Meaning, what are the necessary checks and conditions, the responsibility of compensating to the victims in case of a accident rests with the operator of that plant, not the supplier. Strangely enough, in our act, there is section 17 of the CLNDA Act, which places the liability burden on the supplier. Our logic is that we are giving you a lot of business. We are ensuring that you take the maximum profit. But since we want to have strategic control on how that nuclear material is monitored, we will have our own operant there. But since you are getting profit, you also take the liability. This is unacceptable for a lot of operators, suppliers, because they are scared about another section, section 46. It's not important for you to remember the sections exactly. Which section is it? 46, yes. Section 46 of the same act, which is very ambiguous, which says that, other vague wording like other criminal liabilities can also be imposed which is open-ended. This is the point of contention, which is not allowing the growth of nuclear power in our country. So the whole article is about how to address that. That's all. We are taking a look at some international best practices, and the article says that we have to replicate that in our country for the growth of nuclear power, because nuclear power is cheap and it can power our ambitions, especially in the age of data servers, data centers, AI. They require a lot of power. Without electricity, India can't have economic growth. And solar has this problem of nighttime peak load handling. So renewable energy has its limitations, nuclear doesn't. But the biggest threat for nuclear power, you have seen what happened in 2011. There is a nuclear power plant in Japan called the Fukushima. Because of a tsunami, there was a looming threat. See, nuclear power is generated by fission principle. It will not become a bomb automatically, because the level of enrichment, like we have spoken yesterday or the other day when we were discussing about JCPOA in the context of Iran nuclear power, it's only 2 to 3%. If it is a bomb, it should be 90%. Weapon grade enrichment. That's not the situation here. We are not scared that it will become a bomb, but the radiation leak is still harmful enough to destroy the lives of people in that region, and it will pass on to next generations because it will change the very DNA. There will be genetic mutations because of radioactive materials. That is a bigger threat, and therefore the CLNDA is a very big contentious point, because it requires both money and skills to handle this professionally, which is what India wants to achieve. Just be aware of this issue, because after 10-15 years it's again back in news and there are deliberations going on. Being aware of this context and the history behind it will open opportunities for you to expect a question and learn more about it. Okay? So the basics that you need to know is nuclear power program, nuclear reactor program, the three kinds of reactor, 3-stage reactor, the CLNDA, Indo-US nuclear deal, with which countries we have nuclear supply agreement, nuclear material supply. You also have to know about NSG. Okay? Is India a part of NSG? Yes or no? What is NSG? Is India a part of NSG? Read the history behind it. Only then you will realize how big of a deal is the 2008 Indo-US nuclear deal. Please note this down, especially the freshers. These are the homeworks that you need to do for gaining the best advantage out of today's newspaper. That's it for today. See you tomorrow.